Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. Over the period of last year, we have been on a mission to help our customers get the most out of their Google Cloud investments. This has taken the form of consolidating some of the best practices on GCP, as well as helping customers identify potential area of improvements within their people, process, and culture while operating in cloud. My name is Pathik Sharma, and I work in Google Cloud Professional Services. With me joining here is Scott from OpenX. Today, we will be reviewing a few key areas that we have had the pleasure of investigating while working directly with our most complex customers as they usher in the next generation of applications, features, and customer experiences. We will be discussing the cloud landscape, especially the mind shift that needs to occur when going from predictable capex model to variable cloud-based OpEx model. To double click, there are some cultural changes that needs to occur before you realize the true value of cloud. Next up, we will be discussing cost optimization recommendations that have come up frequently when reviewing the customer cost journey over the last year. Later in the presentation, we will have the opportunity to hear from one of our favorite black belt customer, OpenX, who is very well versed in cost optimization as a practice. Scott will tell us a bit about their experience on how they optimize their cost on Google Cloud. So let's get started. Putting together the best and brightest that Google has offered to research in this mission, we have spent considerable amount of time, effort, sweat, and sometimes tears to present this very astonishing conclusion when it comes to cloud cost. And that is, no customer wants to spend more than they need to on their cloud investment. From the field, we have seen customers migrate their in-house applications onto cloud infrastructure to unlock cost savings. However, as reality surfaces, the savings that were promised doesn't really materialize. And we wanted to know why that is. As we dove deeper, we found that the very feature that makes cloud a shining opportunity to reduce IT cost could end up being more expensive if not leveraged appropriately. For example, due to on-demand and elastic nature of cloud, procurement is now pushed to the edge. Engineers can now spend company money by spending resources without traditional finance approval. Due to this, sometimes it's easier to see an increase in cost, but difficult to pinpoint where exactly it is coming from. The variable OpEx model of cloud, with literally thousands of cost line items and 100 more popping every quarter, doesn't help either. A common notion we see is that cloud cost is not predictable. So we need a framework that is well understood by finance, who is trying to understand the variable OpEx model, by engineers that has to consider cost as a metric, just like reliability and security of the application, and by management that looks at the value created by the cloud than just the number of dollars spent. As we discuss more and more, we realize some of the things we take for granted in our experience might not be immediately apparent to someone who has decided to begin their cloud journey. That brings us to why do we care? Being in professional services, we align ourselves with our customers' initiatives to build deeper trust and long-term relationship. Turns out, as per the research, 73% of organizations plan to optimize their cloud spend, making it top initiative for the fourth year in a row, only to draw more eyes this year due to the global pandemic. So we want to help you, even if it means you spending less with us. All right, so let's begin the journey, starting with the goal in mind. We have seen customers take advantage of cloud to launch faster go-to-market strategy, enable themselves to innovate quickly, and last but not the least, make customer happier by serving them during their constantly changing needs. And we see that customer realize that it's not just about spending less, but it's actually making more by realizing the true value of cloud. So then the question is, how do you achieve all your goals while being efficient in what you do? Well, for one, understanding that cost is more than just a cost center. Our most sophisticated customers aren't fixated on specific cost cutting numbers, but they are asking variety of questions to improve their overall fitness. What are we providing to our customers? Is it a product, a service? Or I will take an example, for instance, machine learning powered memes that are really fun. I will call it Meme Generator 2000. How much does it cost me to provide that and only that thing? You're looking at cost per service as it makes sense for the business. Going back to my example, I'm looking at all the cloud infrastructure cost that goes into creating memes and delivering it through various social media platforms. Lastly, how can I optimize all the correlated spend per unit created? And that brings us to optimizing at all layers that makes up the service. Ultimately, we see conversation gearing towards unit economics. In my example, $100 of my cloud spend is generating 1,000 memes and 10,000 impressions. Overall, generating a revenue of $200 and a happiness score of 10 on 10. So now rather than looking at my cloud cost, I'm looking at average cost per meme along with the happiness score because that's the true value for my business. So my goal is to reduce the per unit cost. So where do we start? Well, first up, it's vital to know where your cost is coming from. Once you know what makes up your cost, the next step is to optimize. So let's look at the equation for cloud cost. It is resources used multiplied by the rate paid for the resource. So optimization ultimately comes down to efficiency in your usage and pricing. Let's look at all the tools available to you to enhance the visibility and governance at all layers. We will break this down into three areas for predictable cloud spend: visibility, accountability, and control. Within visibility, you have built in reports, cost breakdown, and cost table to provide all the information you need in terms of usage and cost. For more customized views, we often see customers use raw billing data by enabling BigQuery export to slice and dice the information as it makes sense for the business. We recommend turning on BigQuery billing export for historical analysis and trends. For accountability, resource hierarchy and labeling are extremely powerful ways to allocate cost per business unit, service, cost control group, or really anything you want it to be. This should be standardized and enforced systematically. With this tool, you should be able to identify any and all costs that makes up your service. It doesn't matter if you are a startup spending thousands or multinational corporation spending millions per month. Again, you don't want everyone to see your organization cost. So Google Cloud provides granular permissioning that fits your need. Moving on to controlling your cost. Our advanced customers identifies the slightest leak in their cloud cost by using budget and alerting feature. Not only that, if they suddenly see a spike of cost coming from a non-production environment, customer take automated action to identify and rectify the cause. You also have the ability to be proactive and get alerted on the forecasted increase of cost versus once the damage is done. And lastly, you have quotas that can help throttle or cap your cost to prevent budget overruns. One thing I will leave you with on this slide is don't wait for the traditional monthly or quarterly review of cost. We have seen successful customers review their cost as frequently as daily. All right, so let's take a look at recommendations that have come up frequently. But before we jump there, our advanced customers knows when to stop the train to make changes that can help them run leaner. It is important to understand what is the potential savings and level of effort required to optimize anything. This will help you prioritize your recommendations. So rather than saying, hey, we can save some money by moving all these memes to colder storage as they are not accessed frequently, the conversation now shifts to not moving to colder tier can cost us 100,000 this month, but will take 2 weeks of engineering effort to implement this. The better optics you have, the more accurately you can pinpoint potential savings and relative effort. Now, prioritizing recommendation is important because there are hundreds of ways you can run leaner, some of which are shown here. Some easier to implement, like committed use discounts, which gives you up to 57% discount for your always on workload, or getting rid of ideal cloud resources that doesn't provide any business value. That's 100% discount right there. Some recommendations are going to be architecture aware, like auto scaling, to scale the resources up and down based on user activity, or the use of preemptible VMs for stateless workload, which gives you up to 80% discount. Lastly, there are some recommendations that are going to be game changer, especially for our heavy users, like storage lifecycle management and BigQuery flat rate reservations. I would love to go through each one of these into great details on when to use one versus the other, but unfortunately, we are tight on time here. The presentation will be made available to you so you have the ability to dive deeper. While not all, I will certainly go through some recommendations that are provided by Active Assist. If you haven't heard of Active Assist, it is unlocking Google Magic across your cloud deployment. We are going to use our specialties around data analytics and machine learning to provide you recommendations based on your usage. Let's review resource optimization first. We understand for small and large organizations alike, it's easy to spin up resources and forget about it. So in this case, Active Assist will surface ideal instances and disks to you. If it doesn't provide any business value, you can quickly optimize your cloud cost by turning it off or just deleting them. Not only idle instances, but over provisioning VMs is a very common runaway cost. Active Assist will surface these opportunities and suggest right sizing to further reduce your cost. While we looked at a couple of examples of resource optimization, let's optimize the rate you pay for cloud resources. You can now easily see your always on workload that can be benefited by committed use discounts. No need to guess what your saving is going to be because Active Assist will do all the heavy lifting for you and provide you an easy to understand actionable recommendations. Last but not the least, for heavy users of BigQuery, Active Assist will recommend best billing model based on your usage. In addition to cost optimization, it can also help your infrastructure to be more reliable, secure, and performant. But there are dozens check available today. We are working on more. Not every recommendation is going to be impactful for you. Some will be quick wins, others will be transformative. We have seen successful examples of many customers optimizing their total cost of ownership by leveraging Google managed services as well as serverless offering to offload all the operational overhead and allow you to focus on things that matters to your business. This pandemic will force business to reimagine ways to operate with efficiency at all layers. I believe the issue is not so much in understanding cloud technology, but it is the standardization of process and shift in culture that is required in realizing the true value of cloud. Now, because there are so many moving parts, it's not one person's job anymore. You need a team. Some decisions are best centralized, like purchasing committed use discounts or standardizing cost allocation strategy, whereas others are more effective when decentralized, like refactoring your application and right sizing, because the application owner knows what's best given their current architecture. No matter what you decide to improve, always define metric, set target goals, and measure often to track your progress. For example, for my application, Meme Generator 2000, I want committed use discount coverage and utilization to be above 90%. That's my target. Avoid going from zero to hero. Start slow, get real time feedback, and iterate over time. In industry standard terms, that's learning to crawl and walk first before you run. I mentioned real-time feedback, which is very critical element for creating a cost-conscious culture, as it can help you course correct sooner. Think of Prius effect. It drives better behaviors. We have also seen customers gamify the impact, which gets everyone excited in reaching a shared goal. A quick plug. Check out our white paper and other assets for comprehensive view on cost optimization. Here are some quick wins we have seen across multiple customers while helping them over the period of last year. Now, I would like to hand it over to Scott from OpenX for their transformative journey.
Thank you, Pathik. Hi, my name is Scott Snell, and I've been working with OpenX on our Google Cloud migration. OpenX is a leader in programmatic advertising, and we operate one of the world's largest ad exchanges. We reach nearly 1 billion consumers, and we work with more than 30,000 advertisers across every screen and device. My focus has been on cloud cost management and cost optimization. Thank you all for joining. I'm excited to share some of the cost optimization learnings from OpenX. Here is our agenda. I'll briefly cover the challenges for OpenX in moving to GCP. I'll share how we prioritize things early on from a governance and cost management perspective. Next, I'll cover our approach to cost visibility and share a number of examples of how we were able to implement various cost optimizations. We'll finish up with a review of lessons learned. So the challenge was how to migrate 15 million lines of code from 6 data centers worldwide in 6 months. OpenX consumes a significant amount of compute, network, and storage resources, and we process trillions of events per day. In terms of migrating to GCP, the engineering teams did all of the heavy lifting and did a fantastic job, and the migration was a success. But early on in the migration effort, we needed to organize how we were going to get started. So let's talk about that. At the beginning of the project, Paul Ryan, our CTO, laid out a high-level cloud migration roadmap. We started with a focus on governance, whereby we set out to establish controls around product ownership, cost responsibility, roles and budgets, and resource management, including folder organization, project naming conventions, and required project labels and SKU labels. From that foundation, we could focus on cost visibility and ultimately on cost optimization. Let's first talk about cost visibility. Our cost visibility efforts have helped us understand what we were spending money on, sliced on a variety of dimensions. For example, by project, by service, by region, and by label, to name just a few dimensions. In addition to aggregate cost visibility, we were focusing on per unit cost metrics. Also, we prioritize cost visibility around usage type, namely preemptible, on-demand, and committed use, And we turned on GKE usage metering to measure our Kubernetes costs by app, by cluster, and region. So how did we set up our cost reporting framework? For some GCP customers, the GCP console may provide a good start to cost reporting. Early on, we turned on the billing data export, which is highly recommended, and started to integrate various data sources into our reporting framework. We use Data Studio and BigQuery for the majority of our cost reporting. One of our key metrics is how many ad requests do we receive each day, and what does it cost us to process each one? We did this by integrating our GCP billing data with our OpenX performance data. This enabled us to get insights into per unit costs as well as gross margin performance. In terms of frequency of reporting, we look at cost reporting daily, and we send out a cost summary email each day to various teams. Now that I've touched on how we set things up from a governance, cost visibility, and reporting standpoint, we will turn our attention to cost optimization. This grid represents various cost optimizations in terms of complexity of the work relative to the expected cost-saving benefits. Also, we have organized the optimizations into 4 buckets: usage optimization, pricing efficiency, waste reduction, and refactoring. We are working on or have completed work on all of the above. Overall, we have completed more than 30 significant cloud cost optimizations. I'll share some examples in the following slides. First, I'll share 2 examples of usage optimizations. The first usage optimization example is around saving money on egress. We saw that we were spending a lot of money on egress between zones, which is called interzone egress, in our regional clusters. See the orange bars on this chart. By shifting to multi-zonal clusters, we were able to reduce interzone egress costs to 0 without impacting other egress costs. The second usage optimization example is around changing the machine shape to better match utilization of CPU and RAM. By evaluating resource utilization within a specific project, we found that we were fully utilizing memory, but underutilizing CPU. See the purple bars. By changing the machine shape, we were able to reduce costs by 25% within this project. The last 2 examples were about usage optimization. In the next few examples, we'll cover pricing efficiency, finding the best price solution for your work. The first pricing efficiency example, and the most important, is around leveraging discounted compute rates for preemptible machines and implementing committed use discounts. The red line represents on-demand compute vCPUs. You can see a nice drop-off in our on-demand usage over time. Running more services on preemptible machines, the gold line, had a very dramatic cost reduction. Also note that some refactoring may be required to run preemptible. The blue line represents our increased 3-year commitment. This change also led to a significant cost reduction. The combination of preemptible machines and committed use discounts dramatically reduced our costs. The second pricing efficiency example is around flat rate pricing for BigQuery. We are a heavy user of BigQuery, both for storage and for querying. We found that our on-demand analysis costs were very spiky, and we had days where we spent way more than expected. By committing to flat rate pricing, we were able to better control our costs. The downside is that some queries may take longer to run if capacity demands exceeded committed capacity. In our case, our queries were primarily for analysis purposes, so we were fine making a performance trade-off. As a result, our on-demand cost dropped, and we attained a more stable cost for BigQuery. The third and final pricing efficiency example is around reducing storage costs. By choosing the most cost-effective storage class, we reduce storage costs by 50% by shifting from regional storage, the blue bars, to a blend of cold line and nearline storage. Also, while we are on the subject of storage, we've done a lot of work with data retention policy changes, a form of waste reduction, and these have also had a big cost-saving impact. So what kind of cost impact did these and other optimizations have? I mentioned earlier that one of our key areas of focus was on optimizing our per unit costs. One important cost metric that we track is cost per ad request. This chart shows our cost per ad request over time. Through a combination of usage optimization, pricing efficiency, waste reduction, and a fair amount of refactoring, we have reduced our per unit costs by more than 60% since September of last year. This is all during a time of increased ad unit growth. Now we'll wrap up with some lessons learned. Here are some key takeaways from our experience optimizing costs in GCP. Cost management and optimization is not a one-person job. Your success will depend on good teamwork across the organization. It might be boring work, but an early focus on governance, resource management, and controls will help pave the way to success in the cloud. Early on, we had a few days of pain with costs that spiraled out of control. At the top of our do-overs list would be to implement project budgeting and/or cost spike detection even earlier than we did. Where possible, utilize preemptible machines, and for long-term consistent usage that would otherwise be on demand, it may be worth it to make a 1-year or 3-year commitment. Finally, there are many different ways to optimize costs in the cloud. Cost optimizations vary with level of effort and the cost-saving impact, so prioritize accordingly. Now, I'll hand it back to Pathik. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott, for taking us through that transformative journey of OpenX. It doesn't matter if you are a startup or a 100-year-old enterprise. Process and optimization tips shared in this session and by Scott can be leveraged across all types of customers. If you still need help, engage Google Cloud Professional Services to jumpstart your cost performance journey.